Principals who have joined for this meeting to start the video so that we can have a virtual look
get
at another.
get to see each other.
Yeah.
So Jayeshji, you see on the screen Mr. Sanjay Yadav, he's principal of Alcon International School.
Good morning, sir. Good
Namaskar,
morning.
sir. Good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. I think it's 11, so we shall start. In the beginning only, I just would like to say that as we had the confirmation from 4 or 5 principals of the different schools, but one would not be able to attend this due to her sickness. So we'll be continuing with this program by the continuing the program. So on behalf of NCTE, I welcome you all for this brainstorming session on NPST document. Actually, this is brainstorming from the stakeholders that we need certain inputs from your side regarding NPST document, which we have kept in public domain. Actually, we seek your inputs for descriptors and the document as well as the implementation strategy. And we thought that it would be better to have you all so that as you are from field, whatever the issues or the problems you may be facing, you can address those into this NPST document so that we can come out with a very good concrete and practical NPST document. So with this, I welcome you all and I request Member Secretary NCTE to brief about this. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Jayesh. I don't know. I'm not able to see the other principals actually. I don't know. Am I not able to see the thing? Because I can see. I'm not able to see the other principals. Their videos are probably off, or is it just? Can we have a confirmation that who has joined at least? Because Jayesh, can you just ask?
I request all the school principals who have joined, please keep your video on, and if it's possible, we have a brief introduction of yourself so that we can start with this.
All right, sir. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ma'am. This is Sanjay Yadav, principal, Alcon International School. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah, you are audible.
All right.
Good morning, ma'am. I'm Ashok Pandey. I'm also here.
Yeah, good morning. Who else is there?
Rishabh.
I think in guest Ipsita Das ma'am is also there.
She's not keeping well, we were told.
Yeah, but she has joined.
Padma ma'am is there, Padma Srinivasan, and Dr. D. Anatha Jyoti.
Can we have a confirmation, because there's no point starting with just one person, no?
Dr. Jyoti is just joining shortly, ma'am.
And Padma has joined. Monica.
Ma'am, Jyoti ma'am has joined. She's able to see everyone. She's saying.
Ask her to keep her video on.
I don't have my video on. Yes, I've kept my video on. Yes, my video is on.
And what about Ma'am Srinivasan? She has joined?
Ma'am, we got the confirmation that she will be joining us. Confirm.
Nisha.
Yes, sir.
Please call
yes, sir.
others
I'm already
and
calling
to ask them to join.
Yes, sir.
Hey, put that gallery fast.
Ma'am, Padma ma'am is facing some technical issues. She is joining shortly, ma'am. She's trying.
Now we can see Jyoti Akka. How are you, Jyoti Akka? But you're mute.
I'm doing it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Shall we start while she joins? Because unnecessarily now we will hear. Okay. So, Dr. Ashok Pandey, Mr. Sanjay Yadav, Padma Srinivasan ma'am is not there, but Jyoti Akka and Ipshita Das ma'am, thank you very much. And Rishabh, of course, on my team. Thank you very much for joining us today in this workshop that we have on NPST. Actually, we wanted to have a bigger workshop in a physical mode where we involved a lot more teachers, a lot more school principals, and get their viewpoints on this national NPST document, draft document that is out in the public domain. Because we've had a couple of open houses in this aspect across the country. Some have been online, and a couple of them we could manage before the pandemic actually hit us in a physical mode also. And we got a lot of suggestions from the teachers themselves from the field. And the document is there, but now when it comes to the implementation strategies, we need to understand from the stakeholders directly, because this is for the school teachers, school leaders, etc. So we need to understand from them directly what are their feedback about the document, the various descriptors that are there in the document, and how is it that we launch it in the field? What are the implementation strategies or the assessment tools or the evaluation tools that we should adopt? And since, because India is such a vast country, and we have to take into account that it is not catering to the urban schools as such, but largely also, in fact, majority of the schools would be in the non-urban areas, and therefore the necessity for having this wide consultation. Unfortunately, we try to get a lot of teachers today. We have got 4 of you, and the schools, when we were selecting the schools to come into our thing, into this workshop, in our various workshops, we have seen that these are the schools which are performing very well, and in the different fields, and there must be a reason why these schools are doing well. There are so many schools, but these are the schools which outshine in so many categories, not only in terms of academics, but others also. So, so that is why we have called those particular schools for our discussions. I personally know that Rishi Valley, if we are talking about NEP, Rishi Valley is the example that we must go to, because whatever it espouses, your traditional values and your integration, everything is there. In fact, from NCTE, ma'am, we were thinking that if this pandemic had not hit us, we were going to ask Rishi Valley to allow us to see your school so that we could incorporate in our document various aspects from your school also. So, so this is the thing. So let me tell you about, our chairman was supposed to be here, but unfortunately he has got just transferred to another post. Therefore, he is not present today. Let me tell you about what NCTE is doing. I think, most of the schools are very much aware about NCERT. But I find that when it comes to NCTE, though we are the apex body for teacher education, somehow the schools are not very much aware of what National Council for Teacher Education does. And probably, I must be very frank, the reason is that what is our mandate of in-service training, we have not really carried forward. But in our new role in the National Education Policy as a professional standard setting body, NCTE will be the apex body for teacher education, and all your training, your in-service training, everything will come to NCTE only. It will be under us. So that is why now we have taken up, we are also taking up these various mandates that will be coming to us very soon when we transform into a professional standard setting body, especially for teacher education. So as far as NCTE is concerned, till now, we have mainly rolled out courses which are pertaining to your pre-service teacher training, your B.Ed, like we have a 4-year ITEP curriculum, we are having a 4-year physical education curriculum, 2-year B.Ed we are revising. All this we are aligning in line with the new national education policy, as well as with the the UGC guidelines that are being framed. The UGC guidelines are still under discussion. So therefore, we are also in the process right now, because ultimately we have to abide by what their guidelines would be. So we are in the process of doing these various formulations of pre-service, but at the same time, we have also been given the mandate of rolling out this national professional standard for teachers, which would be a country-wide implementation policy. We will first pilot it in the center, and in the subsequent year, we will also roll it out to the states as a guideline, and the states would be, many of them would be linking with us, and I'm quite confident that most of the states would be on board with NCTE as far as the National Professional Standards is concerned. And we are also having another important mandate, which is not under discussion today, but I would still like to tell you, that is called the National Mission for Mentoring. And what in this mission for mentoring, what happens is, this is specifically for school teachers, school leaders. Up till now, when we talk about mentoring, we are only talking about students, that students have to be mentored. But it is also a fact that it is also sometimes the school teachers also need mentors. And that is the need for having a national mentoring mission. But that is another topic, and our document is there in public domain, which you can also look at, and we would also appreciate if you can give us your comments on that. For that, we can call you again for a subsequent discussion. But as far as this national professional standard is concerned, as far as NCTE is concerned, we launched in our portal something called My NEP 2020 in April of 2021, and we received a huge number of almost about 2,600 suggestions. Some of them are very, very relevant, which we have incorporated in our document. And then we had a committee, which was headed by a very senior Professor Chankiran Saluja, and a lot of experts were there, and they have worked on this National Professional Standard draft document and come out with it. If you would have had an opportunity to look at this document, which is there before us, you would see that this document caters to the competencies that a teacher would require at each stage. Because now, as per the NEP, there are 4 stages in school education under this 5+3+3+4 scheme. And in each stage, we are not talking about the different stages, that's a different thing. Within each stage, what are the competencies that each teacher or each educator would have to develop, and how you would be assessed, your performance appraisal, how it would be done based on your competencies also. So if you looked at a document in each stage, you will have four stages within that competency stages, that is beginner, proficient, lead, expert, and lead teacher stages are there. And in that also, each of these stages have been divided into different descriptors and we have different standards for them. For example, we have stressed in these things on core value and ethics is one area. Then we have professional knowledge and understanding. Then we have professional competence and practice, and professional development and growth. Those descriptors are there before you today. And also, let me tell you that in the NCTE, we also are going to come out with a National Center for Teacher Quality, which is a sort of, this will be the hub where once all the schools are on board, it will be a national registry for all teachers, which will have all the details of every teacher across the country, right from starting from when with all their pre-service qualifications, any qualifications that they have earned throughout their career stages, and also any trainings that you have done, any skill sets that you have done. That sort of a national registry is is being developed in NCTE. So my request today is, I'm really extremely grateful because I know that you all must be very busy, but I would request that, to please give us a very honest and if you're not happy with the document, you should tell us you're not happy with the document, and please give us a very frank and frank opinions and your suggestions, because when we are going to launch this document, we are actually at the final stage of completing this document, and that is the necessity for having all the inputs from every stakeholder, especially our school principals and our school teachers. And in case you are not able to say it, we would appreciate if you even give it to us in writing, because that would help us a lot. Yeah? So thank you very much, and thank you for joining once again. And now I ask Dr. Ashok Pandey to take over, because he's a coordinator of this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your opening remarks. So I think first Rishabh is going to give a presentation. So Rishabh, if you are ready, please go ahead before I come in. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope everybody can see my screen.
Yes, Rishabh, go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome to the session, everyone. As Kesang ma'am has just shared that this is a national document, and we all are working towards building a document that can be implemented across the country. We are a nation with a lot of diversities, different kind of schools, right from international curricula to state board curricula. We live in metros, we live in villages, we live in remote and rural areas, and we have to build a document which can be taken to every part of the country in the right context. So with that background, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly share what was the purpose, why the document was created, what are the major criterias of the document, what we have defined, what we've tried to define in the document, and then how we wish to implement it, like a very short insight into how we wish to implement it, and then we would like to seek your opinion on that. So as ma'am said, NPST has been given as a mandate to NCTE to bring teachers to the center of all education reforms, right? NEP talks about transforming all kind of education, right from school education to higher education to adult education, and the core has been created that if we transform the teachers of our country, if we build a standard which can guide not just the teacher skill set, but also teaching practice, that would catalyze the transformation process and would take us way ahead in the journey. Higher education is creating their own faculty standards. There's a separate team working on this. NCTE has specifically worked on school teachers and their professional standards. So that is what this document is all about. The standards are focused on three core areas. The first area is education and training of the teachers. Till now, NCTE has been working on pre-service education, which is our B.Eds and the M.Eds, universities and the colleges catering to pre-service education. NCTE has been regulating that, but as per the new mandate, NCTE will also be regulating in-service teacher education. So NPST document becomes the guiding document for both of pre-service as well as in-service teacher education structures across the country. Second is support in practice. So once a teacher joins the career, where they start until wherever they are progressing, every stage requires special support in practice, and the document will be able to guide the teacher that if you're at a current competency stage A or the 4 stages, what kind of tools should you be using? How could you approach a mentor? How could you approach an expert teacher? How could you approach a lead teacher, and how you could receive support while you're in practice? And finally, the career progression. NEP very clearly says that today across India, when a teacher has to grow, they usually move from being a PRT to a TGT and then to a PGT, and then they have to grow ahead and they can go ahead and join the leadership or management positions. NEP says that a teacher should be able to grow in the stage that they are teaching, right? And the new school education structure is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, which is foundational stage, preparatory stage, middle stage, and secondary stage. So if a teacher joins the profession in one particular stage of the school, they should not have a need to move to a different stage for career progression, and that has been kept as one of the third and the most important pillars of that entire document. Let's go ahead. This document will majorly cater to the entire life cycle of a teacher, right from teacher preparation to teacher recruitment to teacher skill development, teacher appraisal, and finally promotions at different levels. So the standards have been created for teachers' growth and continuous progression. Ma'am was mentioning about the 4 stages. So think about this as the moment somebody decides that I want to become a teacher, right? That might be right after the school, that might be right after their first graduation degree. The moment they decide, they need to now have a goalpost that I have to start as a beginner teacher. And for that, they can go to a university, they can go to a college, they can go to a pre-service education institute, and that pre-service education institute will be teaching them courses which we would be giving them ITEP courses, a B.Ed course, which will all be focused on developing competencies which have been mentioned under the beginner teacher competency level. So all of those competencies will be learned by the teacher across the domains in their pre-service education, and they will be collecting evidences of beginner teacher competency level while they are in their pre-service education. Then once they have all the competencies, they'll be called a beginner teacher and they'll be able to start their job in a school. So that becomes the first goalpost for anybody who wants to become a teacher. They start their job in the school as a beginner teacher after developing all the competencies of a beginner teacher. So this becomes the background now. So once a teacher has joined, and the teacher might have joined in the foundational stage, middle stage, or secondary stage, or preparatory stage, they would always start as a beginner teacher right after their pre-service education. Now, once the teacher has started, they will start focusing on the next set of competencies, the next career stage, which is a proficient teacher stage. For that, they need to first develop all the competencies, and only then they're called a proficient teacher. Now, this does not mean that a beginner teacher would not have certain competencies at a proficient or an expert level or a lead level when they're at a beginner's teacher stage. They would have. Most of the teachers would have, right? Let's say technology, and we're talking about youngsters joining the profession. You know, the next generation's becoming teachers. They would be far ahead in technology most of the times. So there is one domain which takes care of one subdomain which takes care of technology, and they might be at a very higher stage in that particular subdomain. However, they'd be called a lead teacher or an expert teacher or a proficient teacher when they are proficient in all the domains, all the subdomains, and they have developed the competencies for all the domains, right? So now the teacher joined as a beginner teacher in one part of the school, and they start focusing on their own professional development, their growth, their continuous professional development by mapping their current skill set to the target career stage skill set. And while they are developing that, they are practicing in the classroom, and they have to identify their own practice. They have to develop reflective practice. They have to identify evidences and keep collecting those evidences in various formats, which will be prescribed to create evidences of becoming a proficient teacher, that they can now move to proficient teacher. And similarly, once they're at a proficient teacher stage, they move to an expert teacher stage. Again, while working in the classroom, while delivering the best that they're delivering in the classroom, collecting evidences, and so on. And that's how a teacher moves from a beginner teacher stage to a lead teacher stage in the same stage of the school, in the same level of the school that they started. So a teacher starts at foundational stage of the school, they start from a beginner teacher, they become a lead teacher in the foundational stage itself. So that's how the framework has been structured. Now, for every particular stage of the teacher career, right from beginner to lead, domains have been defined, and under all those domains, we have identified various subdomains and then performance criteria for every stage of the teacher career. So the 4 domains are core values and ethics. We want to create this system in a way that the competencies that our teachers learn are, they are based on Indian ethos. They take care of the India's constitutional values. They take care of India's diversity. They take care of our background, right? Our entire value system. So core values and ethics have been defined in a way that a teacher has to develop them even before they enter the classroom, right at the pre-service education level. These would include ethical practices, values at a country level. Then states would be able to, define their own values and ethics as per their state, because we are a very diverse country. Then schools would be able to define their own value and ethical systems as well. So there would be a core which we have to follow at a country level, but then this could be, not modified, but we could add more values and ethics based on our own individual requirements as well. So that's how the entire framework has been defined. So the framework gives us a guiding path of how do we evaluate, how do we look at core values and ethics. But then we have that, you can say we have that independence at a state level that we can define our structures. Second domain is professional knowledge and understanding. We have tried to define that professional knowledge and understanding in a way that teaching is not as easy as people believe or a layman believes, right? And we need the world to know that teaching requires a lot of technical knowledge. So professional knowledge and understanding has been created in a way that every skill which is required even before a teacher enters the classroom, as the base knowledge, has been put under professional knowledge and understanding. Another way of thinking about it is this is that core knowledge which you might not be able to visualize when you sit in a classroom and see a teacher teaching, but it is very important for a teacher to be able to practice in the classroom. So we put all of those things in the professional knowledge and understanding. The third comes professional competence and practice. These would usually be all those things that you can visualize in the classroom, right from lesson planning, right from how the delivery is being done, pedagogical knowledge, assessment structures. All of that comes under professional competence and practice. And finally, professional development and growth. We believe that is a very important competence structure. That's a domain that we need to train all of our teachers on, right from beginner to expert, that they are able to identify where are they standing today in their competency level and how can they grow further by defining their own growth pathways. So these are the 4 domains. Let's quickly take a dive into all these 4 domains. So core values and ethics would usually talk about constitutional values, as I mentioned, professional ethics and values. How do we look at our professional relationships? Core of teaching career or teaching profession in India is our commitment to students. So how do we imbibe that as a core value? And finally, responsible and ethical use of technology. Technology has become that mandatory update to our teaching systems after COVID struck. So responsible and ethical use of technology, and this we have put under core values and ethics. We have other areas of technology in different domains, but here we are talking specifically about responsible and ethical use of technology. Now these are the domains. These would have further subdomains and performance criteria. I'll share an example on that later, but this is what core values and ethics looks like today. Let's go to professional knowledge and understanding. These were the things that I was talking about as the base knowledge, right? A teacher knowing about the curriculum structures, how curriculum is created, what is the bigger picture that we are a part of. We might be delivering a 40-minute class with a 30-minute, timeline on, the learning objectives that we have to deliver today. But then those 30 minutes of a 40-minute class is actually a part of a bigger picture. So how are those curriculum structures built? What are the factors that would affect any student, right? From their child psychology theories to learning theories, knowing about them, pedagogical knowledge and structures, and then finally their subject knowledge and understanding how do we integrate education and technology together. So this forms the basic core knowledge that every teacher needs to have, and they need to keep developing over the years. Next domain is competence and practice. As I mentioned, these are things that we can go in the classroom and see, whether a physical classroom or an online classroom, we can actually see these things happening as an observer. So does the teacher really have a learning plan, and is the lesson delivery being done based on a plan, or is it just happening, impromptu? What are the assessment structures being used? Have we created some baseline assessment? Have we created some assessment of learning, for learning, as learning structures in the classroom? How are we communicating in the classroom? Has the effective classroom communication been taken care of? And then how are we managing those different components, right? From our physical, emotional, mental, intellectual components. How are we managing those 4 components of the classroom, and how are we managing the dynamics between the different components of the classroom, whether it's a 20-student class, a 40-student class, or in some cases in our country, even a 100-student class. So how do we manage all of those things? Finally, professional development and growth, the fourth domain, we are talking about a teacher should be able to identify their own learning needs, should be able to map their current competencies using reflection and reflective practices. Once they've identified, they should be able to plan their own professional development, seek help, and then engage and participate in learning communities, both inside the school as well as outside the school. So an entire performance criteria structure has been created around professional development and growth. And we are saying, let's teach the teachers about this right from pre-service education. So the moment somebody becomes a beginner teacher after pre-service education, they need to know that I have to plan my professional development as well with my mentors in the school, with my lead teachers, expert teachers, as well as with my head of school. So they need to have those competencies right in place, right from beginner to expert teacher level. So these are the 4 domains. Quickly deep diving into what a particular domain, subdomain, and performance criteria looks like. So picked up 2 domains. We've picked up subdomains out of domain 3, which is professional competence and practice. So let's say if somebody was at a beginner stage teacher level, their competency in learning plans, and this is not exhaustive, this is just one row out of that entire NPST document. There would be more under learning plans. So under learning plans, learning goals, a beginner teacher should be able to do this. They have to target this as their competency in their pre-service education. Once they join the school and they have they are practicing, their target career stage becomes proficient teacher, and across the document, across all the domains and subdomains, they start targeting how do I reach the proficient teacher competency. So which would in learning plans mean moving from incorporating knowledge of learning taxonomies in creating goals to setting appropriate learning goals and outcomes using curriculum framework, and so on, going to expert and lead teacher. So that's how the performance criteria domains, subdomains have been categorized in the document. Now, one of the biggest questions that we have received in different open houses, and that's why we have tried to add a couple of slides on that now, is this document looks great. What about the implementation? How do we evaluate what teacher is at what career stage? Are we going to use some particular methodologies? Are we going to test them on question paper? Is there going to be a paper pen test? Are we going to leave it to the schools? Are we going to leave it to the states? Are we going to create a specific body? All of those questions are being answered. There are implementation plans being created. However, what we are very clear about is that NEP says that all evaluation has to be competency-based evaluation, competency-based assessment. So evaluation of all the career stages shall be using competency-based assessments. We'll be using those assessments at different level to identify the right skill set that we are looking at. So let's say learning plans for a beginner teacher might be evaluated using a tool A, assessment tool A, but for a lead teacher, because they have to demonstrate some of those skills in a very different way, the tool might be different. Not an exhaustive, but an example list, an exhibit for what kind of tools and methodologies would be used has been put together. So right from identifying 360-degree feedbacks from students and parents on different competencies of the teacher as mentioned in NPST, to observation reports from peers and mentors. There would be self-assessment questionnaires that will be provided on the NCTE platform. There would be performance appraisal reports by heads of schools. There could be some teacher knowledge assessments with objective type or a subjective type evaluation. Again, these could be done at a central level or at a state level or using testing agencies. We're talking about, as ma'am mentioned, accredited and assessed CPD programs. Again, NCTE is going to regulate that. Who are the approved providers? How are they delivering that? We would be looking at teacher developed resources. It's the first time that we will be bringing in recognition of prior learning, because we're talking about almost 1 crore teachers right now, and it not be the right thing to go and tell everybody that, okay, you don't have evidences right now. So we want them to develop the evidences, we give them time, and we tell them to follow a process of recognition of prior learning and teacher presentations and looking at student learning data. So these are some of the assessment tools and methodologies which would be used, but at the core of every tool NPST shall be the guiding document. So this is a basic, look into what these, how the implementation and assessment shall be done. And we are looking forward to your feedback and understand if something could be added, something could be removed from across the document. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Rishabh, for your very elaborate context setting. You have almost given a master class on NPST, and I'm really happy about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard the Madam Member Secretary who gave a preview of this very, very important historical document. And you also heard Rishabh, who has given a bird's eye view of what all it entails. Now, the couple of things that I just want to reiterate in the sense that, the professional standards have always been there, but they have been at the personal level, at small quarters. We have had centers of excellence and things like that. But systematic and structured embedding of professional development and professional standards for quality among the teachers is something which is very, very new, and it emanates from the national education policy. And NCTE, as Madam said, has been mandated to take it forward and scale it up at the level of this vast country. So this is one thing. So what this document is, this document is a document of committing ourselves. This document is committing for our own improvement. This document is for improving the learning among the children. And this document is our commitment to be in the effective service of our students and learners and institutions. So that is the premise on which this particular document has been brought. It is a strength-based document. Strength-based document means that it talks about continued progression from whatever level we stand at. So as Rishabh said, from beginner to proficient to expert to lead, and very nice, beautiful names have been given to it. Programi, Praveen, Kushal, and Praveen. These are the 4 stages. And that is what strength-based means, that if we have strengthened ourselves at one level, what are the other value additions are required for all of us to move to the next level? So that is the second principle on which this document is based. The third very, very important is that this document is going to help us reframe our own understanding about what is curriculum, what is pedagogy, what is assessment, and also what are the classroom challenges, because all these things will be reframed by the insights that we get every day from our classroom. So it is an exercise in reframing our understanding. And the last principle on which this document is based on is that it is based on mutual trust. It is based on shared vision, and it is based on our collective commitment to continued success of our institutions and of our students, and therefore an exercise in nation building. So these are the 4 principles on which this document is based. It is a dialogue in process, as has been very clearly mentioned to you. And therefore, today, 4 distinguished principals are here of very reputed institutions, and we are looking forward to your value addition in the light of what this document is. And Madam has said it very categorically. You can be very frank. In fact, NPST, the whole principle is based on expression and freedom of expression. Okay, so you please do not hesitate. Just let us know. And since the time is not, maybe if you have more time, you can do it more. And therefore, one flexibility is there that in your 10 minutes of presentation, you focus on one thing. But if there are something more, you can always send your letter or a revised email or presentation, and we'll wait for a day or 2 to incorporate that in the final preparation of the document. So that is the whole agenda. And therefore, now I take this opportunity to invite Mr. Sanjay Yadav, Principal of Alcon International School, to do his presentation for the next 10 minutes. Mr. Yadav.
Thank you, Ashok sir. Respected Ma'am Secretary, Rishabh ji, for giving us what a beautiful walkthrough to the document, and esteemed members from NCTE team, dear colleagues. We feel privileged that yes, we have been given the opportunity to share our thoughts and reflections on the documents. But before I do that, I thought that let me set the context in terms of introducing my institution, our organizational practices uh, in a better way to everyone, and then we will talk in this context. So as it was discussed that yes, we are talking about NEP 2020, which has given emphasis on more on access to quality, the drift from access to quality, the focus on learning but not schooling. So in this context, obviously there are challenges, and one of the biggest challenges which any country can face, and especially in this time when the digital divide has posed another challenge globally, the access to education, forget about quality education, but even to access to education is becoming a crisis. So one of the things which is being seen by leaders of the nations globally is the dearth or lack of quality teachers and leaders. And now as a system, how to meet that requirement, what kind of investment is required for that, because most critical and most important infrastructure which is there is not the infrastructure in terms of building or resources which are available, but it is the infrastructure of minds, educated minds. And those educated minds have not only to be drawn to building the culture of the nation, the learning culture of the nation, but to draw them in such a manner that the youngsters, they are interested and they participate willingly. They grow. And for organizations, instead of looking for experts, how do they grow their own available resources? That is what is desirable. So as a school, our practices and policies, they have been revolving around providing quality access and enhancement. We have been looking at our core focus has been on building leadership and encouragement, which comes through identifying the leaders by various in-house CPDs which are happening, giving opportunities to grow and lead. This is what happens. And I'll share one small practice that when we are talking about acknowledging. So acknowledging right from, as it was mentioned, that whether it is a beginner level or it is an expert or a leader level. So sometimes it so happens that even for beginner level, the encouragement is desirable, and it should not happen that all the opportunities are going towards those veterans or the leaders. So we have a practice where we identify somebody known as the rising star with a simple policy that somebody whose work association with the organization is maybe initial 3 to 5 years only. But even in that time period, if somebody is able to do something exceptional, due motivation and recognition is what is given. So that brings in encouragement, and that creates a new set of force which will be able to take forward the journey with enthusiasm. Rising stars, or some people, they are very good in terms of their work, and our evaluation or our assessment or our policy should be such that we are able to identify even if they don't want to project. So identifying somebody that you are noticed, you may not have put forward, but yes, your sincere and constant efforts, they are being observed. So this is the context I'm talking about. And yes, of course, when we are looking at the document, I must admit here that yes, within a day's time, I could focus only on one of the descriptors. And for that, there are few short observations which I will share. So please allow me to share my screen, and I will bring that context here, which was the descriptor 1. So I'm just sharing my screen. Please allow me. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, you do your presentation. Yes, Sanjay, it's fine.
Right, sir. Yeah. So this is the document. Of course, we have looked at it, and I'm sure everybody has started going through it. And the standard one, which I will be talking about, Rishabh ji has already given us a beautiful walkthrough. So here I'll be talking about core values and ethics. This is standard one. The areas, which 4 areas which have already been talked about. So the first one I'm looking at it, and there's one quote which comes to my mind when I talk about ethics and values, that in hiring people, look for integrity, intelligence and energy. And if they don't have the first one, which is the integrity, the other two will kill you. This is what was mentioned by Warren Buffett, and I'm sure that everybody agrees. And this is something which requires an investment and analysis. Core values and ethics. This standard covers 6 domains which have been mentioned very clearly. So one of them happens to be the constitutional value, professional ethics and value, commitment to the students, professional relationships, commitment to profession, responsible and ethical use of technology. So this is already presented in the document, and of course, as these tables have represented all the domains, subdomains, as well as the performance criteria. So these are the guidelines, and I'm sure that this rubric which has been presented here is very well elaborated and very well thought of. It has presented all the dimensions. And as practitioners, when we look at, I've gone through the rubric in detail, and there were few observations which I will be able to share. So I'll not go into the detail because this is a self-explanatory document. Everybody will be able to read through and dwell through this. When we look at constitutional values, so the criteria is well defined and presented. Of course, somebody who is entering into the domain, when we are looking at the expectations in terms of a citizenship development model. So there we have to look at it, and one particular aspect which is expected and well defined in the constitution is building of scientific temperament. So that is in fact a fundamental right also. So this is something which can also be looked into it, that how are the organizational practices looking into it and how are we developing it, because it is the temperament, scientific temperament of an educator which will make a difference. So one parameter which could be there. Professional ethics and values, even at beginner level, though it is talking about recognition and demonstration. However, applications are also required. This was one of my observations which I have jotted down here, and I'm sure that we can think of deliberating on that. As far as commitment to students is concerned, the criteria are very well defined and those can be taken forward. In fact, taking inspiration from that, I looked into the professional relationships, and here is a humble submission that the diversity rubric under commitment to students could feature even in professional relationships as well. So this will be something which is desirable, because when we talk about the community, how does the community look at these diversity, and how does it handle not only with students or parents, but even among ourselves also. Then coming to commitment to profession, financial transaction related rubric could also be a part of organizational policy, because as practitioners, when we are asked to share our thoughts, the areas which are there already, they take care of everything in wider dimensions. However, some more additions which could enhance the value of the document. I'll share this with all the esteemed members also. In terms of responsible use of technology, rubrics for net equates, digital well-being and cyber safety could be included. Of course, the outlines are defined, but structured, because when we are talking about very well focused rubrics which will be able to measure. And then it could be helpful even when we talk about orientation or somebody joining or somebody growing or being a part of it. So FAQs based on the situations leading to moral and ethical dilemma could be prepared. They could be discussed and circulated by the organization, within the organization, and it could be inter-organizational share also. And then annual reviews could keep adding values to it. So this can be one aspect of it. The process to collect evidence. Now, making the policy is one, as it was right in the beginning, it was very clearly mentioned that how do we go about it? So it's not just the rubric and follow, but process of collecting evidence as per well-defined questionnaires to keep the evaluation specific and not generic. That would be the roadmap that would lead us to achieve. And in fact, it could have a broad a point system, which could be an indicator that, okay, this is be it our self-assessment, or it is the annual review which happens. So there it could be a point indicator which will say that, okay, here you are at the beginner level, or it is progressing in desired direction. Appraisals could have well integrated element to review the progression or even regression on predefined parameters. So both ways it could be looked into it. And then a proper orientation, documentation of do's and don'ts. And in certain areas, there has to be well-defined zero tolerance policies, which could be conveyed as a part of the document, get acknowledged, and the culture of practice to be developed at the organizational level. So repercussions of crossing the zero tolerance boundaries could be well defined, because I'm not looking at it as something negative, but this is something which, if it is essential and desirable, so those will also come into practice. And of course, when we are looking at it, as it was mentioned by ma'am in the beginning, that we are not focusing or looking at schools with uh, better resources or located in better, but it is a pan country situation where we have to look at it. So it should be certain minimum standards which will be desirable everywhere. However, as we have mentioned it, that organizational internal policies will have a certain minimum level of standards and expectations to be met, and then they could grow from strength to strength. So these were some of my submissions here. I hope I have been able to do some justice here, and will be always available to further discuss and deliberate as and when it is desired.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay. You have highlighted some of the points, particularly in the constitutional values imbibing, and these points will be taken care of. May I invite Madam Member Secretary, ma'am, if you have some comments at this stage?
No, I think carry on with the presentation because everybody is waiting.
Fine. Thank you, ma'am. So now may I request Madam Padma Srinivasan is there? Yeah. Madam Padma?
Yes, good morning to everyone. This is Padma Srinivasan from DPS Arkipuram. I do not have a presentation or something like that, but basically, some of the things which come to my mind. In-service training is one of the most important components, according to me. Am I audible?
Yes, 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 ma'am. There is some beep, but I think.
Yes. Okay. In-service training, according to me, is the most important aspect of uh, teacher training. And repeatedly, I feel that it should be made mandatory for everyone. The BSc has done it through the capacity building programs, but it has to be made mandatory so that we repeatedly not only get the children teachers to retrain themselves again and again in their subject related developments, but also in terms of the various rules and regulations which have come through in the last few years, like the POCSO laws, like the safety security aspect of the children, and how careful we have to be in the classroom while interacting with the children, and so on and so forth, the online methods of interaction, etc. So we have to go on talking to the teachers and taking their point of view, understanding their problems, and at the same time finding solutions for these as well, and resolving the issues as and when they come by for the teachers, so that the communication between the teacher and the student and the institution is at par with the regulations that have been put forward for that purpose. So these are issues which I feel are the current issues that are always there at every current moment wherever we are positioned. So that is one of the most important aspects, and there I think NCTE can play a very important role in taking up important issues minutely and dealing with these issues and preparing modules for the same. I remember doing a research based on an NCTE document on gender education as far back as 1997. And it was a self-learning module, which was prepared by NCTE, a very fine monument, which I utilized in order to study the teacher educators of the various diets in Delhi. And it was a very, very useful document. Similar documents can be prepared, and we can get people to find out about the teachers who are there in their own institutions, find out the output, and further, prepare for a teacher education program within the school complexes. So these are some of the issues which come to my mind at the moment about the document. Of course, one of the important things, another very important aspect is that in classes 6, 7, and 8, the science teachers are expected to teach the entire science curriculum. Similarly, all the teachers of social science, namely history, civics, geography, are expected to teach social science at 6th, 7th, and 8th level. Many of them have a degree in geography or in political science, and they may not be able to handle the other two subjects with as much expertise as required and the basic knowledge that is required. So there is a need for intense in-service training in all these things. In many of the schools, one has heard, and including my own, the physics teacher would say, "No, I have never really studied biology." And so that doesn't really work. At the Nobel Prize level, people are given the Nobel Prizes because they've done, uh, you know, a kind of an invention or a discovery which involves all the very aspects of science or many of the aspects of science. So the teacher has to be at least well versed with the basics. We are insisting on this, that is integrate teaching, but how many of them are very well versed with what is happening currently on these various subject matters? So these are issues. If the training aspect or accreditation aspect can take into account time and again in the various levels of service and the various stages of service, then teacher education over a long period of time can improve. A teacher education and as well as the teaching in the classrooms can improve over a long period of time. That's my submission. Thank you.
Very much, Padmaji. You brought out some very important points with regard to the teacher development, interdisciplinarity, putting the onus on all the stakeholders for preparing the teachers to handle the classroom challenges in a more adequate fashion. So thank you very much for your inputs. And may I now invite Dr. Jyoti, Principal Rishi Valley School, ma'am, for your presentation. Dr. Jyoti.
Yes, thank you, sir. I'll first put my screen on and I'll begin to talk. Okay, are you all able to see the screen? Because I'm not able to see you.
No, ma'am, your screen is not visible.
Not yet.
Okay, 1 second. How about now?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Before I begin, I would like to say that we are in a remote place here in a small school, quite far away from you. But speaking of you today, one felt like one was a part of a greater community, and I immediately felt welcome and a part of what was going on as the speakers were sharing their views. Now, about the document itself, I would say that we were only asked to look at those 4 standards, and I'm sure there are 2 things I would like to share. For a very brief while, I worked in England, and at that time we were given a document of this kind, where as a trainee teacher, you were asked to meet all these standards and, like you said, provide evidence for everything. Well, and of course, I came back like a homing pigeon back to India and to Rishi Valley School where I work. And I had often thought that it would be nice to have something like this. I know it's there in the public domain, but when you look at England, almost every teacher has to take it forward or in some way be a part of it. But I don't think that kind of a widespread thing is here in India. And therefore, I really appreciate the work that you have done. So even though it may just be I know the whole document is quite long, but the very standards have been categorized. I think it must have taken a lot of work even to come to that kind of a categorization, and I really appreciate that. And I will submit that I don't really have the expertise to go into it, though I can see that a lot of work has gone into it. So what I thought I would do in my presentation is that I would just take you through these slides and show some of the practices. Like I've just taken some subdomains and tried to share what happens in Rishi Valley School, and I hope that is useful. I have a problem here. I'm not able to see my own screen. So could I request someone to show
Ma'am, your screen is not visible here. Your PPT is not visible here. I'll try it. I'll try to do it from my this.
Okay, that would be really thank you so much, because I did share. For some reason, it's not showing. Should I stop sharing then? In that case, you would be able to do it perhaps. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. You stop sharing,
Yes,
then
you
it.
have to stop sharing your screen.
Thank you. Sorry, not used to Microsoft, I should say. Okay, as it is being set up, what I would like to share today is that I've just taken one subdomain, and because I think everything is just one, looks like a drop, but I think when you look closely at the drop, it is a mighty ocean, I would say. And therefore, I have taken some of these drops and looked at how we do it in Rishi Valley. Of course, I can only share from where I am. So before the screen comes on, I think I've taken just one subdomain from each of the standards. Interface between the inner world and the outer world, I think. I know your time is precious. Sorry about this.
Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes. Could we do it as a presentation, please?
You start slideshow.
Okay. So, like I've shared with you, I just have taken some subdomains. Could we go to the next slide, please? Yes. So, for example, in core value and ethics, I've just taken the subdomain of relationship with students, colleagues, parents, guardians, and the wider community. Here, I cannot but help take a quote from Krishnamurti, on whose philosophy many of the Krishnamurti schools are based. And he says that the very purpose of education is to cultivate the right relationship, not only between individuals, but also between the individual and society. And that is why it is essential that education should, above all, help the individual to understand his own psychological process. Now, let us see how we translate that in our day to day life. Next slide, please. So I think we can zero down to 4 relationships that we work with in school. One is the relationship with land and nature. Another is relationship between home and school. Relationship with the community. When I say community, I do not mean just the community within the school. We are very closely associated with the community outside. So, for those of you who do not know Rishi Valley School, we are in a rural area, we are in a peaceful valley, and we are surrounded by villages. And we have a very close relationship with these villages through our outreach programs. And of course, that seems a bit patronizing. It's not at all like that. They are our support staff, they are the backbone of how we carry on with our day to day life. And of course, relationship with oneself. We have not really demarcated this or put it down in our school book or something. But this, I think, is the essential premise on how the school operates on a day to day basis. Could I go on to the next slide? So I've just given a few examples. I'm sure there are many more. And I'm sure many schools also would be doing some of these. So when one looks with, into relationship with land and nature, there's so many things one could do, no matter how small or big the school is. For example, we have a rural school nearby, and they've been doing their kitchen garden. So landscaping, gardening, field work, waste management, water conservation, bird watching, nature journaling, and so on and so forth. Maybe I'll just speak about local produce. For example, we have children coming from all over India and studying here in our boarding school, but we've always gone for the local produce, which connects them to the land and the food that is produced on the land and what they eat. Similarly, when we do food miles, it tells them where the food on their plate has come from when you trace it back. So I have just thought one or two of these ideas would uh, be worth sharing. And when we go into relationship between school and home, we have the usual parent teacher meetings, assemblies, but so I would like to say something about the mother's stories. For example, in our rural school, uh, many of them are first generation learners, and there is a time when all the mothers come and share the stories, the oral stories. There are many more things that happen there too, but that is a very, it is like an umbilical cord that connects the children with their own background, their own tradition and values. So, and I think it's a very rich resource. And I think wherever one is, whether in a city or a village, these are there as readily available resources if only one could tap into it. And of course, there are other parent teacher discussions where we are not discussing the child, but we are discussing about life, and we have dialogue in our study centers. And talking about relationship with community, we have many two main outreach programs. We have a rural health center, we have a rural education center, and there are many community projects. For example, students do many projects. They try to understand the local livelihoods. I think that opens up their world and builds up an awareness as no amount of texts could do that. And finally, I talk about relationship with oneself, which I think is the essence of how each one of us finds our own bearing. So Astachal may seem like a strange word there, maybe not to Kesang because her daughter studied in our school. Astachal is a time when all of us gather in the evening and we just watch the sunset together. So it's a very quiet time. So, in essence, we are looking at quiet spaces, quiet times where we have dialogues. Dialogue is every Sunday, some interested people get together. K is for Krishnamurti. Sometimes students get together and discuss with teachers. And we have it in our timetable that teachers get together, it's timetabled, and we have a discussion on some text or some aspect. So I'm just giving a glimpse of what could be. So if we could go on to the next slide. So this is a picture of, back to the yeah, this is a picture of one of the astachals. So you can see a child there sitting and watching the sunset. And this is a poem penned a long time back by one of our students about sunset at Astachal. A drop of gold in a stormy sea of gray and purple and blue, splashes of blood on the sacred overarching sky. Behind the three kondas are the hillocks we have, and when we sit at Astachal, these are the three hills that we see. So that is what they mean by konda. Konda in Telugu is hill. A sudden spin of the sky as I witness the earth rotating from my still seat on the ground. What will the painter paint today? The infinite sky, her easel, the sun, her paint, my senses are awakened. I'm part of all that surrounds me. We celebrate the beauty of the golden ball in her prime, dumbstruck, at peace and content. So I think this kind of quiet moments when this kind of poetry comes out is a very beautiful moment because I think it connects one with oneself. And I think there have been so many Astachal poems, which means it does strike a chord in the students as it does with many others also. Next slide. Okay, in standard 2, I have just taken the professional knowledge and understanding, the subdomain as understanding of learner diversity. I very well understand that here it is also talking about diverse learning tools and all that. But I think at the very core, it should also um, validate, recognize, and value who each child is, or who each teacher is, or who each person is. And I think that Mills poster is a good indication of that. The things that make me different are the things that make me. And I think if every child could think this, there would be no complex. Uh, a lot of mental health issues could be addressed by just addressing this. I would not like to play the talk because that itself would go into 15 or 20 minutes, but I thought in any case, I'm sharing. So I would just put the link there. And there's a very useful link where Chumanda, who's a well known writer from Nigeria, she talks about the danger of a single story. In the course of her talk, she talks about how she always thought that hers was the only story. And then she goes to the house of her maid and finds that their lives are also rich in their own ways. There she finds this child because her mother has always said, "Eat the bread on your plate." Do you know that the maid does not have food and her sons do not have food? So she develops this picture that they are very poor, very deprived. And therefore, when she goes into her maid's house one day, she finds that they too have a rich life. For example, he has this very colorful basket, which he has woven out of the colorful grass there. And it suddenly opens up, it explodes her awareness of her surroundings. So I would think of it as a good resource. I use it quite often in creative writing or when there are differences that are to be resolved, that we should always look at the rich diversity that is there around us. Could we go to the next slide, please? We will not watch that. We'll just go to the next slide. Yes, thank you. When it comes to the third standard, professional practice and competence, I thought I would pick on the subdomain of safe and positive learning environment. And I would highly recommend this book where Krishnamurti writes about school without fear, where there are a series of dialogues with teachers and parents. And at least we try to do that in Rishi Valley and other Krishnamurti schools because we talk about it a lot. In fact, last 2 days also I've been talking about it, is how can a child grow up without fear? And that I think is the most positive and safe learning environment. So, and fear is there. We may talk about it, but it is not going to go away. So we need to explore it together with the child. And here is an excerpt from the book. You ask a boy to pay attention with, sorry, I thought, with the intention that he should pass examinations. You're compelling him to do something. So in examining, I found out that where there is an intention, a motive, there is no attention because motive is stronger than attention. And I think that is a beautiful quote. And if we only could unravel this, I think we could do a lot more for our children. Because all the time, I think we are being driven by exams and exams and exams. I'm not decrying the need for them, but about the attitude we have towards them and learning. Next slide, please. And in standard 4, I thought professional development and growth, I would take the subdomain of reflection. I think for us to continue to be as teachers, and I'm essentially a teacher, that we need to reflect. And this reflection sometimes takes, even after 20 years of teaching, I find that sometimes I'm reflecting. I'll just share one short anecdote and then I'll just go through the points. Uh, English has always been a favorite subject, and I teach English, so I've taken it for granted. But I was shocked a few years back when children were not really paying attention. And it was a novel experience for me because I've never come across this kind of a block, not even when I was teaching in England, where I had the most recalcitrant students. So I began to think about it. What is it that I've been doing or not doing? And I think that reflection, and I looked at my old worksheets, I looked at my old lesson plans, and so what was there that was missing now. And in a way, it was like a rebirth for me. And it is just how it can happen at any time of your career. It could happen at the beginning of your career. I know you were talking about lead experts and lead teachers and expert teachers. I think even after 20 years, you'll suddenly find that you are at crossroads, sometimes not knowing what to do. And there is a beautiful system in England, for example, where a new teacher comes in to teach and an older teacher. When I say new and old, I'm not talking about the age, but according to their experience, is observing the new teacher. And it is a great experience because these new teachers, they're doing a presentation because it's a part of their training. And it's amazing how much you learn from these people because, like one of the speakers had mentioned, technology, the youngsters know much more technology, and therefore you look at them and see, oh, how well versed they are with this, and therefore you are able to take some nuggets from them. So that was just an aside. So some of the ideas are a teacher's reflective journal, attending each other's classes, robust faculty meetings, and of course, feedbacks from colleagues and students, which I think is also a part of your standards, how you build it into it with questionnaires and such. And here is just a sample from a teacher's reflective journal. I began to pay more attention to my classes. It's in the middle that I've taken. And this is also some teacher like me, I think, who has suddenly discovered that her classes are not working. I began to revive some activities I had done before. I began creating more interactive work. A student walked up to me and said that he had really enjoyed my classes. The magic was back in my classes. So that was a short presentation. I hope I've not crossed my 10
Yeah.
minutes. I usually do. So I'm sorry about it. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jyoti. I think it was very profound, very deep, very insightful. And I think at the implementation stage, some of these will be very, very useful to bring in into the psyche, emotion, and the total context of teacher development programs. So I think your presentation has been absolutely invaluable. Thank you very much for your presentation, ma'am. I think now the last presenter, Ms. Ipsita Das is here. Ipsita Das. Ipsita Das. Earlier she has said she will not be here, but during the program I was told that she is here. Can somebody confirm she's here or not? I don't think she's
Sir,
here.
Ipshita ma'am is not well, so
Huh.
she will not be presenting. She's
Okay, fine.
having cold.
Fine. Thank you very much. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have come to the end of today's contributions, presentations, value additions, and listening through these experts. One thing is becoming more and more clear to me that ultimately the teacher development plan is about undivided attention to their growth, undivided attention to make them feel happy and emotionally very secured on our campuses. The second thing is that their differentiations and diversities, we have to use it as a strength. Teachers and students and parents, they all have to come together and make a co-learning environment on our campuses, and that should be integral to any teacher development program. And of course, we will have to, one of these standards talks very extensively about developing flexible, dynamic, individual centered assessment processes. So that will also become very, very important. And at the end of the day, learning is a living system. So it is dynamic, it is interdependent on each other, it is very plural, and the diversities will be treated as strengths. And I think this all ecosystem will make the teacher development programs very, very comprehensive, which the NCTE has taken it upon themselves. So thank you very much. And now I'll invite Madam Member Secretary to give her closing remarks. Madam, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pandey. And, listening to all the principals who have spoken here today, in fact, we have got so many suggestions from you. And I would still request you to, just give us in writing the various suggestions, some concrete ones which you would have, and also the presentations that you've shared with us, if you could still share with us so that we can also have it in our with us, and look at it and utilize it at our own while drafting our document. My the closing remarks actually will be given by my DS, but I'm just requesting all the principals that maybe even for this mentoring mission also we'll be seeking your suggestions on that also for the national mentoring mission also. Maybe someday we will just ask you to give your comments on what you would like in the mentoring thing. And all the schools who are present here, of course, they are very renowned schools. And Alcon School, DPS, of course, we don't have to say anything about that. It's really a thing. And as far as if anybody wants to get the true essence of NEP, I would request that whenever this COVID gets over, please do go to Richie Valley and you will get what NEP actually espouses in the true sense. The way it is not only towards learning content in the classroom, but also about your relationship with your society, your community, what you need to give. So this is one school I have personally visited, and I know that this is one school that if you want an example of an NEP, what NEP espouses, this is one school that whenever the COVID is there over, please do go and visit if Jyoti Akka gives permission. So this is, and thank you. I won't give the closing remarks. It'll be given by Jayesh.
Okay, Jayesh ji.
Yes, sir.
Over to you, please, for your remarks.
Actually, it was wonderful to have a feel of the schools from the field itself. Actually, what sir and madam has presented, it was really, we are having a feel of the school, what is going on at the field level, and this is what we were expecting from you, because sitting at the office, we may not be able to know what is going on at the real, what is the real ground level reality, and how the things are functioning at there. So in line with this NPST document, I think that whatever we were expecting, we have got that. And whatever the things you have presented, it will be very helpful in finalizing this document. And besides that, we are just requesting you, all of you, to send your comments through email also, so that we can incorporate those things in our final document. As well as it is very impressive to have the things which is going on at your school and which can be a part of this NEP or NPSC document. Thank you very much to all of you, and we seek future cooperation from you also. And uh, for coordinating the things, I'm thankful to Pandey sir also, because he has been doing this for NCTE early also. He has been a part of the discussion when the teachers were invited across the nation, and as and when required, he is always ready for NCTE to work upon the things which is going on at present. So thank you very much, sir, and I thank all the school principals who have been the part of this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam, Jayesh ji, Dr. Jyoti, Sanjay, and Padmaji, and Rishabh, all. And it has been a great session. And we have been able to finish it a bit earlier because one of the participants was not here. So thank you very much. And as has been requested by Madam and Jayesh ji, if you can put in a mail with the points that you made today, and if you have any other point which you could not make, I think that will be a very, very great contribution from all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, Madam and Jayesh ji. Absolutely delighted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity. And of course, we will be available and always accessible as required.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, NCT team at the backhand. Thank you. Thank you.